Assistance Program. Cities, towns, and First Nations can now apply for funding. It's not clear how much support there is, but the government says it will cover 95% of the costs for losses that are uninsurable because of disaster.
Most of the disaster financial assistance here will go to support First Nations, local governments, regional districts in the rebuilding of public infrastructure.
Officials are still unsure about the total number of homes and structures destroyed by fire, but do say it is in the hundreds. 3,800 people are still under evacuation order, 34,000 people under evacuation alert. The program is not available to individuals. The minister is suggesting anyone with questions should contact their insurance provider if they have one. Bowen Ma is also issuing a stark warning about drought in BC. While it has rained in some parts of the province recently, Ma says the drought conditions are like nothing we have ever faced before.
In my opinion, truly is a sleeping giant of a natural disaster that we are challenged with right now. The impacts will be very, very real, which is why we have been communicating to the public since April the need to voluntarily reduce water use and conserve water. We've been working with communities to increase water restrictions, imploring water licensees to voluntarily reduce their draws on streams as well.
Ma says farmers and ranchers have already been hit by the drought's impact. She says the best case scenario is for gradual extended rain through the fall to gently replenish reservoirs and streams. Ma warns too little rain could extend the drought, while too much could cause flooding. The government is urging everyone to use less water. Now, against that backdrop of severe drought, BC is also struggling to manage the use of its groundwater. It is vital to river ecosystems and agriculture. Camille Vernet visited the Cowichan Valley on Vancouver Island, where drought is creating tensions within the communities that depend on that water.
It's harvest time for Katie Elric. She has been farming in the Cowichan Valley for 20 years.
Farming to me just makes sense, but it's also so important to me because it provides healthy vegetables for the community, so I feel like we're doing something that's important for the community.
The Elric Farm and Cafe depend on groundwater and uses every bit very carefully.
With the drip tape, it is actually goes right onto the vegetables that need watering.
In 2016, the province implemented the Water Sustainability Act.
This well here.
Since then, businesses have needed a license to use groundwater.
We went through the application form. We filled it out. That was like in 2020.
She says in July, provincial enforcement officers came to the farm and told them to stop using groundwater.
And we were like, shocked. We really didn't know what to do at that point.
The province had no trace of her initial application, so Elric applied again.
They're so backed up in the processing groundwater license that it'd probably be 2 to 4 years. That's why I'm saying that this is a threat to food security in the Cowichan Valley.
This hydrologist helps businesses apply for groundwater licenses. He says long wait times will cause more problems.
Will they wait years until they hear back from the government? Or will they just simply say, forget it, I'm just gonna not apply and hope they'll never find out? And so when your decisions are not timely, you could run the risk of driving people underground.
But Way says licenses are an important tool to regulate dwindling water.
By introducing the Act, we're slowly changing people's attitude to realize this water, whether it's water in a lake or a stream or underground, is a public resource.
It's an underground resource that's essential for land-based businesses. But that resource is important for fish as well. And that's creating conflict in drought-stricken parts of the province.
This is a really tough situation for a lot of businesses because they require the water, they depend on it like we all do. And there's probably a lot of fear about what'll happen if they get licensed and the fear of being restricted further. But the fact is that we are in very desperate times right now with unprecedented drought. We have fish being cooked in our creeks from being too hot. We have to manage this.
He says the province should step up.
We only have one water sustainability plan that's even close to being completed in BC, and we have watersheds across the province that need them.
Come on, cows!
Recently, Katie Elric was allowed to use the groundwater again while she waits to hear back.
It still feels very stressful.
The future of this invisible resource remains a debate as fish populations and farmers continue to face challenges.
Look at how cute they are.
Camille Vernet, CBC News, Duncan.
If you are struggling to pay a mortgage in this country, the Bank of Canada offered what some may see as a reprieve today. It is keeping its key interest rate at 5% for now. But as Nisha Patel explains, further rate hikes are possible if inflation lingers.
Anyone with a variable rate mortgage has been hit hard by the dizzying rise in interest rates, going from near 0 to 5% in just a year and a half.
It's getting difficult for us to survive here in Toronto. I would say we are just surviving. It's the same story for us, and it's the same story for so many other families. So yes, it's difficult, but as we say, we are trying to survive. We are floating.
Now there's some relief as the Bank of Canada hits pause on further hikes. The central bank says the economy is slowing, the job market is cooling, and consumers are spending less. It all comes as higher borrowing costs start to have an impact.
I'm in the camp that says they should have stopped at 2.5% and then let things settle out.
Jim Thorne runs an investment firm. He says the central bank should have stopped its rate hikes some time ago.
They're going to go too far, and that means Canada's going to have a hard landing in 2024.
In other words, a recession may be on the horizon.
The labor market will experience further weakness as a result of the lagged impacts of these interest rate hikes, which obviously isn't great news for Canadian workers.
Still, many economists say higher rates are what's necessary to get stubborn inflation under control, because leaving it unchecked would be worse.
When inflation is very high and when there's a lot of components of inflation that are running well above the 2% target, the economy becomes less and less efficient.
Inflation in Canada hit 3.3% in July. That's still out of the central bank's comfort zone. The bank warned if it sees any signs of inflation surging again, it's prepared to raise interest rates even further. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, news of no new interest rate hikes is some relief to some homeowners in this province. Many are already struggling to keep up with their mortgage payments. A Langley homeowner spoke with us earlier tonight on our 6 o'clock news with Anita Bath. She says in the last 2 years, her payments have gone up by $2,700 a month, forcing her family to make some desperate decisions.
We're having homestay students in, and that's helping. If we need to, we could also take up some other jobs. My husband could perhaps work during the summer, but we're really at the end of what we could do. We're having a hard time coming up with any more money that we could get out of our budget.
The BC Ombudsperson is calling on the government to reconsider its refusal to provide a young woman with financial compensation after allegedly giving her misinformation.
Alexandra's best interests were definitely not protected in this case, and I'm concerned there may be others who are in the same situation.
The issue began during a custody case when the woman was 17. The Ministry of Children and Family Development told her that she would qualify for post-secondary tuition funding. But when she applied 6 years later, she was rejected. In a report released today, BC's ombudsperson says the ministry gave her false information. The ministry is rejecting 3 of the report's 5 recommendations, including financial compensation. It has agreed, though, to develop strategies to improve the way it gives legal advice to youth. The City of Surrey says it is time to get rid of derelict boats it claims are illegally mooring in a picturesque river, and it's bringing in the feds to help them. The city says it will work with Transport Canada to remove the boats on the Nikomekel River in the south end of the city. It says they dump raw sewage and garbage into the water and are gathering salvage debris, creating hazards for other boaters. The mayor says the river has many spots where people can legally drop anchor. The cleanup will begin sometime this month. The Patello Bridge will be closed northbound to traffic into New Westminster this Friday and Saturday night. The closures will last from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. as crews install steel beams near the existing bridge. Drivers are asked to take the Portman or Alex Fraser bridges instead. The night bus is also going to be rerouted. That's the N19. TransLink says customers ought to add up to 30 minutes to their travel times. The new Patello Bridge is set to open next year. The first ever zero-carbon fire hall in Canada has opened in Vancouver. Hall 17 is touted as a highly efficient all-electric centre built with zero-emission standards.
And I was blown away when I heard this. It reduces the operational carbon emissions by 99.7% compared to the building it replaces. So either the other building really sucked or we did a really good job here. But needless to say, this building is helping us to transform the way we look at infrastructure and to ensure that we continue to reduce emissions.
The new fire hall at 55th and 9th Street is intended to be a post-disaster hub as well. It's equipped with communication tools that would be used if something like an earthquake hit our region.
But I didn't get jobs like in my related field.
Why international students are struggling to find work in their fields of study, forcing them to take up less desired jobs here in Canada. We'll have the full story when we come back. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Thanks for being here. A Vancouver actor has landed the role of a lifetime, starring alongside Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase in the new film Zombie Town. We sat down with the 18-year-old to chat about the movie and what it's like to work with those comedy legends.
Carver has his first new zombie movie coming out in over 30 years. No one knows anything about it, except it'll premiere here, exclusively in Carverville, Halloween night.
It was an amazing experience and very different, you know, to be in a zombie movie and also seeing how people look like before the makeup and with the makeup on. It was very hilarious to see. I really feel blessed that I got the chance to work with such talented and well-experienced actors who have been in the business for a long time already at an early age in my career.
Living Dead has the power to suck the souls out of everyone in its vicinity.
It was a crazy experience because that was my first lead role, you know. I had so many expectations and I was also a little nervous, you know, to embark on that journey, you know, having an entire movie based on you. And also, it wasn't also an easy character. It was an abused child who is being abused by his dad, and then he's releasing all this abuse onto someone else. It was a very stressful role, so it was really a crazy experience.
I just got my driver's license. I can drive.
It was very kind of difficult, you know, so I can keep my composure, being serious throughout the scene and not letting other people's performance, you know, affect me and make me laugh. It was also really fun, you know, and also helped me learn of how to keep my composure no matter what someone does on sets and whatever their performance is, to always stick to the character and be Mike no matter what. I really hope that this film is able to open my doors so more people know my name, Marlon Kazadi, so I can have easier chance of getting other roles and playing different characters, and and so more people can get to know who Marlon Kazadi is.
1 month detention.
Mrs. Boneyard, please.
A record number of international students are coming to Canada. A study permit is often seen as an ideal pathway to land jobs here and get permanent residency. But as Shuriya Shetri tells us, many of those who come here are struggling to find a job in their chosen fields.
But I didn't get jobs like in my related field.
Santosh Acharya moved to Vancouver in May 2018 for his master's in human resources. 5 years after making the move from Nepal to Canada, he is still working in a restaurant.
I worked as a supervisor and then I became a manager, restaurant manager.
Now he's gearing up to start a business selling homemade Nepali food to his community.
Planning to open the store and let's see.
After spending about $36,000 on his degree, he had hoped to use that education to get a job in his chosen field, HR. But that proved challenging.
When you actually come in Canada, then you'll find it very different.
Data released by Stats Canada today states BC is home to some of the highest international tuition fees. But like Shah, thousands of international students in BC can't find jobs in their chosen field even after spending a fortune.
But instead they found themselves stuck in low kind of entry-level service positions.
This expert says that's because of a lack of Canadian experience and, more importantly, lack of networks.
So it's something like 75% of jobs in Canada are found through social networks, not through just applying cold from a job site.
Acharya says he wanted to quit his restaurant job after graduation but couldn't do so when they offered him a supervisory position. And that's the ticket to staying in Canada permanently.
Then I was planning to apply for PR, right? And then that's gonna help me out. And
to apply for permanent residency, an applicant should have at least 1 year of experience in a skilled job category. Being a restaurant supervisor counts.
Knows that if students start working in a low-wage service sector job while they're a student, then that's the path they're going to continue on.
30-year-old Deep Shah has been continuing on a similar path. He juggles 3 jobs, none related to what he studied, hotel management.
People are not having jobs over here. And this is the harsh truth which nobody says.
When asked if he regrets coming here, Shah said,
I do, actually. I honestly do.
It's unfair, says Francis.
The whole economy is benefiting from, a lot of these low-wage workers that are coming here and taking the jobs that no one else wants. But it's the post-secondary institutions that get the tuition fees, and so there needs to be more accountability there.
In a statement to the CBC, BC's Ministry of Post-Secondary Education acknowledged international student education system is not working as well as it could. But it has slated $480 million to prepare students for in-demand jobs, and it will put forward more solutions this fall. For now, Acharya would advise prospective international students back home to err on the side of caution.
Don't jump when you get the visa. Do research.
Shuriya Shetri, CBC News, Vancouver.
There is a live look at the Port of Vancouver tonight. A pleasant enough day across the south coast, and we're expecting sun across BC tomorrow. Darius will have your province-wide forecast right after this.
Rents here at Omva Court in the West End are relatively low, about $200 a month for a one-bedroom suite. But with rent controls gone, the tenants are now facing increases as high as 60%. An example is Margaret Campbell, who's lived here for 19 years. Right now she pays $194 a month. On November 1st, that goes up to $310.
Well, I feel it's far too much all at once. If people's rent went up that much every year, it wouldn't take long for it to be sky high, would it?
Not far from Margaret, rents are also going up at 1956 Harrow Street. One woman we spoke to said her rent is now $338 a month, but as of November 1st, it'll be $475 a month, an increase of about 40%. None of the tenants we spoke with would talk to us on camera. Many are afraid of legislation that will allow landlords to evict tenants without cause, something tenants advocates say has stopped a lot of people from disputing high rent increases.
The tenants are still given the opportunity to review an excessive rent increase, but then they're staring no-cause evictions in the face if they do.
Many other West End apartments, like this one, have also been hit by much higher rent increases since the controls were lifted. Richmond says if nothing is done to stop it,
we're going to have chaos in the marketplace. Tenants are going to be faced with illegal rent increases that they're going to live with. They're going to live with the repair problems that they would normally ask to have fixed. They're going to live with harassment by their landlord. They're simply going to allow themselves to be abused, if you wish, or used by their landlord in a way that they haven't done for years.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. September is Literacy Month. Have fun and support the cause by joining CBC Vancouver's Dan Burritt at Dakota's Teen Trivia Challenge on September 27th. For tickets, register at dakota.ca. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Time for our province-wide weather forecast with climate and science specialist Darius Madavi. Darius, we know it was a hot summer, destructive summer, wildfires, drought conditions we are still in, and now we have some sobering numbers to prove it.
Yes, absolutely. It seems like it wasn't just here in BC when we were seeing these heat waves, these extreme events, because it was officially confirmed this morning by Copernicus, the EU's climate change service, that August 2023 is the hottest August on record, and by quite a margin. You can see here we've passed the old record by over a third of a degree, which is quite the jump. If you see previously, the old record in 2016, not that much higher than the previous year. So this is definitely a concerning number, especially when we take it in the larger context of this summer, because it's not just August 2023, which was the second hottest month on record, the first hottest being July 2023. So the 3-month period of this Northern Hemisphere summer, also a massive jump from the previous record-holding years in 2019 and 2016. And I'm sorry to say that this is likely just the start. We have this El Nino developing. We've talked about this before. We're starting to feel some of those impacts around the world, but it's usually a year after an El Nino develops that we really see those temperature records being set. So I would expect 2024 to be at least as hot, if not more record-breaking than this year. These are the usual trends that we see. You can see lots of hotter patches, especially right here in BC. We have one of the strongest El Nino effects, typically. We have a more warmer and temperate winter for the most part here in BC. That being said, we're not feeling those effects yet. We have a pretty temperate day tomorrow. We have pretty seasonal temperatures. We have that clearing trend moving up through the province with temperatures in the interior sticking around the mid-20s. Here in the coast, probably the low 20s over the next few days. In terms of rainfall, we're not seeing too wet over the next few days. We have a bit of moisture moving through over the next 24, 48 hours, but it's really very little in terms of the smoke conditions. We have a pretty clear day coming up for the southern part of BC. It's mostly in the north and central parts of the province that we're seeing these smoky skies. And for here in Vancouver, we really just have sort of a microcosm of everything. We talked about that clearing pattern. Sunday, we see temperatures come down as some more rain moves in, and then just a cloudy week ahead.
We could use a bit more rain.
We could.
Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Look forward to Sunday. That's your late news for Wednesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, as you do, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. It begins tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a good night.